So I'll first take you into the theory. Thanks, Anton. And the theory is about developing and implementing effective solutions to social and environmental issues to support social progress. And I will mainly focus on open innovation theory. I will go into design thinking and some other theories, and we'll practice with a few methods. So that's it for the coming 45 minutes or so. Okay, but first, and this is kind of a tip of the iceberg, because I'm not only going to be talking, I'm going to ask you guys to do some things at some points. So this is the first. Please take a piece of paper and a pen or a marker. Doesn't matter what kind of paper, doesn't matter what kind of color, just one paper, one pen, or a piece of paper, and please use the coming 30 seconds to draw innovation. And I always like to say with drawing, keep it short and simple, but that's it. 30 seconds to draw the broad concept of innovation. It's always interesting to see what people come up with, and there's no wrong drawing here. I would like to stress that. And also I like that, Marketa, you said it's more like a 10-year-old drawing, and that's perfect, because I hope innovation is a lot about thinking like a 10-year-old or a child, but we'll get back to that later. I also made a drawing. Now, it's not really fair because it's not my drawing, but as you can see, this is also a drawing of innovation, and I think it's a fantastic drawing of innovation because it's super simple. And the more you look at it, the more it will make sense. At least it did to me. So what you see here is at the beginning, there's a lot of mess, which kind of relates back to what we've seen in some of your pictures. And so you see also on top, it's described at the start of an innovation project, it's often very, there's a lack of certainty. There's a very ambiguous field context, a lot of choices to make, a lot of ideas, a lot of doubts also. And then in the end, at some point, it should become more clear. Choices are made, and focus is what comes out. And then in the bottom line, you see research, but you can also say prototyping or trying or trial and error. And at the end, you get towards a design. And I think it really captures the essence of innovation, which is that you can take certain steps to guide it, but you can never be sure where it leads you, and you will have to just go with that flow. And I would like to invite you for the coming 40 minutes to also take on that mindset. So it's definitely not a linear process, which is basically what we would like to see for a project, because then you can predict how it will go. A little bit about open innovation. And if we talk about open innovation, we kind of have to start with closed innovation. And closed innovation is what you could say based on a few thoughts. So the thought of smart people in our field work for us. So we should get all the smart people to work for us, so then we can innovate. Another one is if we discover something ourselves, we will get it to the market first, and that's good because then we have the lead. And also, if we can create the most and best ideas in the industry, we will win. So it's a lot about we should have the capability and the knowledge to do the best work we can and be innovative. So that's basically what you could say also an old way of doing innovation, which of course still exists, but less so than in the past. So what is then open innovation? Maybe you can guess already, but it's about not having all the smart people work for you, but making sure you can work with all the smart people also outside of your organization. So also making sure that you can profit or use things that have been developed or are being developed outside of your own organization. And another key fact is that it's based on making sure that you have the best business model is better than getting to the market first. because getting to the market first doesn't tell you a lot about how well the project has been developed, or the product or the service. So it's a really different kind of looking at innovation. But we'll get more into examples later on this session. Some principles, just to start with. Open innovation is about collaboration over competition. So it looks at the world as a place of opportunity and wisdom, instead of as something you have to defend yourself from because it's competition. It taps into the capabilities, knowledge, and resources from all kinds of other organizations that could be partners. It often is a culture of learning and growing instead of knowing and protecting, and a culture of trust versus control. But those are only a few of the principles. But for those who really like lists, these are a few principles to go with from here. So that's open innovation. Now let's talk a little bit about design thinking. Some of you might be familiar with it, but I wanted to make sure we're on the same page. So a little bit about design thinking. It's a really popular way of thinking, I think, right so, because there's a lot of value in applying it to either a project or service design or whatever you can think of. And the basic idea is that you start a process with empathizing with your end user. So by really understanding the problem and the problem owner that you're designing for, then really defining what this problem is and who this end user is, making sure that you really have that formulated well. Then ideation only starts after you have this understanding. So then you start with coming up with a lot of ideas. And then you go towards prototyping. So you make some decisions and you're really going to try your ideas in reality. And then you test it. And you could also add an extra step of implementation after the test. So it's basically the thing I want you to remember for now, because we don't have the time to go into it really, to really elaborate on it further than this. But I want you to remember now 3 things. It's based on desirability. So what makes sense to people and for people. Feasibility, what is technically possible within the foreseeable future. And viability, so what is likely to become part of a sustainable business model. What is a viable thing to design? And in that order. So desirability is key in design thinking. And it might seem really like a given, or like something that you would automatically apply. But I think the whole revolution of design thinking has been to add the empathize and define step to how we look at developing things, instead of just coming up with ideas, producing them, and then finding out if there's a real need behind it. So I just wanted to introduce this shortly to you. Then another, the third element that I wanted to address in this theory is the beginner's mindset. And I really like the comment of Marketa at the start with her drawing, like, it seems like a 10-year-old's drawing. And that's perfect, because that's what the beginner's mindset is about. And of course, there's also the other side, which is the fixed mindset, or the expert mindset, or the knower mindset. So that could be described as somebody, for example, saying my abilities are fixed. So I'm either very intelligent, or I'm very skilled with some things by birth, or I'm not. Also a fixed mindset, somebody with a fixed mindset would say, like, I need to constantly compare myself to others, because am I more intelligent or less intelligent, or more skilled or less skilled? Then again, in a fixed mindset, you can also give up easily, because you can say, this is just not for me. I was trying to learn to ride a bike, but apparently I'm not good at it, so I'll just stop and I'll try something else. Also, it might be difficult for somebody with a fixed mindset to go into a challenge, because that means you would have to kind of learn something, or adapt, or improvise. And somebody with a fixed mindset would be really stressed to be very certain that he or she is able to do something before he or she tries to do it. So these are some examples of the fixed mindset. So what is then the beginner's mindset, or you could also say the growth mindset? Growth mindset is based on that, your abilities are not fixed, but you can learn something. That some skills can be learned, even if at the start you don't seem to be good at it. So it's really a trial and error mindset. So open to trying new things, open to trying difficult and complex things, because there can be a process of learning in you trying it. Asking for help as well, because maybe somebody can help me get better at something. Learning from your mistakes. So all these things are the opposite of a fixed mindset. So really, you could compare it really to somebody growing up. So that's why it's often compared to a children's mindset, because they don't yet have the idea of themselves being good at something or not being good at something. They just experience the world as something new, and they try new things, and then they will see what comes out of it. And a nice quote of Carol S. Dweck, which is the writer of the book Growth Mindset, is, "Why waste time proving over and over how great you are when you could be getting better? Why hide deficiencies instead of overcoming them?" And it's a really interesting self-assessment, I think, as well. I personally experienced to see sometimes you might have a fixed mindset. Some of you might have a really a growth mindset, but it's interesting to see for yourself where you fit in. But for now, I just wanted you to take from this that open innovation and also design thinking are also about a mindset. It's not only a process or consecutive steps. It's also a way of thinking, which can make you successful in open innovation or not. And if it doesn't, it can really hinder you in approaching innovation. Then some other thing that I wanted to address is innovation in the humanitarian sector. So why is it different? Why do we need innovation in this sector? Mainly because our problems are becoming more and more complex. You probably all know the Sustainable Development Goals. So if you look at the problems that we're facing today, and of course we have had problems and issues for as long as we have been on this planet, but today our problems are really interlocked. So we have a lot of systems that we built in the last 50 to 100 to 200 years, and they're getting more and more interlocked with each other. And our problems are very dynamic. Our world is very dynamic. So there's going to be about 9 billion people on the planet in 2050, which kind of gives you a sense of that we're interlocked and everything is very complex. So we all have our own needs, we all have our own goals, and they all simultaneously are being formed and somehow have to manage to exist in this world together. And our technology has made a lot of our problems very complicated and difficult to understand, and are mostly only understood by just a few people, but do have a lot of influence on how we live our lives. So that's basically why where innovation and design thinking, open innovation comes into play, because to solve these problems, we really need to co-create. Because we're so interlocked with each other, we have to work together to solve our problems. Otherwise, we are just finding solutions that have no backing or that have no impact at all. So we're really working towards shared value. And if you want to have shared value, so not only economic value, but also social value, you need to make sure that you co-create solutions. So all these different factors and aspects are designed together into a solution. So that's really short on why we need innovation in the humanitarian sector. Now I want to go into a method with you guys. So now we're actually going to do stuff and apply this theory, because that's how learning works. It's learning by doing is the most effective. So we're going to get active. The storyline method, I will explain it to you. It's a method that will help to kind of get into the space of where your mission meets the outside world. And so why is that interesting? Because working on a mission or on a product or whatever, but let's take a mission from an NGO for this case. You always have to deal with the outside world, right? So there's people that need your solutions. There's people that want to pay for your solutions. There's people that are affected by your solutions, but are not in your model or your business model. So there's always a component of you and then the outside world. And in a lot of cases, we start on a mission and we are very enthusiastic about that mission and we really want to make it happen. And we kind of tend to forget about the complexity of the outside world or the role that it has to play in making us successful. Because you always need somebody to back your idea, whether if it's with funding, but it could also be with support or a partnership. So at some point, you will need the outside world to be able to be successful. You need to reach, for example, your persons affected. And if you do so at the end, then it will be very difficult to incorporate all these needs of these people and all their benefits that you could have from them in your mission. So what we want to go towards is making sure that you're dealing with the outside world as fast as you can. And that's what open innovation is really about, and involving others in your mission.